Please rise and join me in welcoming the fourth and the seventh President of the Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste. Please welcome His Excellency José Ramos-Horta, the fourth and seventh President of the Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste. Welcome Ambassador Roberto Sarmento and Ambassador Elisa Maria. Ladies and gentlemen, you may be seated. Mr. President, ladies and gentlemen, bom dia. Welcome to the ERIA School of Government Leadership Lecture. Today's session will remind us that Southeast Asia is not only a region of growth and diversity, but also a teacher to the world through its experiences in peace building, resilience, regional cooperations, and dialogue. Without further ado, let us officially begin today's program. To commence the session, it is my pleasure to invite the Dean and Managing Director of the ERIA School of Government. Please welcome Professor Nobuhiro Aizawa.
Tadir Diak, good morning. His Excellency José Ramos-Horta, the President of the Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste. His Excellency Bapak Hasan Wirayuda, the former Minister of Indonesia. Bapak General Indriartono Sutarto, former Commander of the TNI. Ambassador Roberto, Ambassador of Timor-Leste to Indonesia. Ambassador Elisa, Ambassador of Timor-Leste to ASEAN. And all ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen, my name is Nobuhiro Aizawa, the Dean of ERIA School of Government. Today, we gather to celebrate. We celebrate the joining of Timor-Leste's official membership of ASEAN. ERIA is one of the two international organizations headquartered in Jakarta, together with the ASEAN Secretariat. We cannot be excited enough to celebrate to building this community stronger and work together closely. It cannot be a better start than welcoming the President to we working together to make our good friend community of ASEAN here in Jakarta. We also celebrate peace and friendship. We know the other regions in this world are suffering with atrocities. And oftentimes, the root of this is because it's haunted by the specter of history. There are leaders who fail to put the case in behind. And not only that, there are leaders who exploits the history to gain, strengthen, and power. We learn that exploiting the history of ravage is the honey to bring power and tyranny. If Timor-Leste and Indonesia did not establish the friendship that they have masterfully and thoughtfully have created, I would doubt that we could have this event today. We are blessed with the peace we have, thanks to our leaders that we convene today. For us, it is extremely fortunate with our leaders, the men and women who had the deep understanding of the history and the conviction to the future, the commitment and the sense of responsibility to bring that into reality. It is actually one of the tallest order of leadership. This quality of leadership, we cannot be appreciating enough. We have to acknowledge and celebrate precisely because of what we see in our world today. We really cannot take the peace for granted. This is the reason why we wished His Excellency President Ramos-Horta to come to our institution to share his experience and wisdom. And we are so grateful for this blessing that he has offered. The ERIA School of Government has been set to cater to serve this purpose, to share the best governance knowledge that we have. We oftentimes forget that the best knowledge and insights are within us and among us, very close by. We often go to learn in schools far away, but we often overlook that we can learn right here in our neighbors. We are here to be mandated and to be determined to serve as the center of institutional memory of this region. And today, with our fourth leadership lecture, which started from Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, the former President of Indonesia, Hun Sen, the former Prime Minister of Cambodia, and Apisit Wejchajiwa, the former Prime Minister of Thailand. And we are here of our fourth leadership lecture. And we all thank you again for His Excellency President Ramos-Horta for this opportunity, and for all of you who convened this morning together to celebrate. With this, I would like to open today's ERIA Leadership Lecture. Thank you very much. Obrigado.
Thank you, Aizawa Sensei. Now, it is my honor to invite the President of ERIA, Mr. Tetsuya Watanabe.
His Excellency José Ramos-Horta, President of the Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste, Ambassadors, Excellencies, distinguished representative of the Diplomatic Corps, guest colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, very good morning. It is my great honor to welcome His Excellency President José Ramos-Horta to the ERIA School of Government Leadership Lecture and to ERIA office in Jakarta. This lecture series was established on the belief that future leaders should learn not only from books, from policy papers and classrooms, but also from those who have experienced history firsthand and help shape it. It forms part of ERIA's broader efforts to preserve Southeast Asia institutional memory and pass on the lessons of leadership to future generations. Southeast Asia has undergone remarkable transformation over the past half-century. The region has experienced conflict, reconciliation, rapid economic development, and deepening regional integration. ASEAN itself has evolved from a smaller grouping of 5 countries into a community of 11 member states, representing one of the most dynamic regions in the world. President Ramos-Horta's public service has unfolded alongside many of the defining developments in this region's modern history. His lifelong commitment to peace, diplomacy, national development, and international engagement has earned him respect far beyond Timor-Leste. Today, he continues to play a pivotal role in guiding his country as it prepares to join ASEAN as its newest member. One of ASEAN's greatest achievements has been its ability to create an environment in which countries can pursue development in peace, engage openly with one another, and build prosperity through cooperation. Despite the many challenges facing the world today, this remains one of the Southeast Asia's most valuable assets. As Timor-Leste moves toward full ASEAN membership, there is every reason to be optimistic about opportunities ahead. Deeper integration with the region will create new opportunities for trade, investment, connectivity, and human development, while strengthening Timor-Leste's contribution to regional cooperation and prosperity. ERIA was established by leaders of ASEAN and East Asia in 2008 with a mission of supporting ASEAN integration and development. Over the years, our work has evolved alongside the region's priorities, encompassing economic integration and connectivity, energy security, industrial development, digital transformation, human capital development, and economic resilience. As Timor-Leste enters this important new chapter, ERIA looks forward to deepening its collaboration with the country. ASEAN membership brings new opportunities, but also new responsibility and ambitions. We hope ERIA can serve as a trusted partner in supporting Timor-Leste's development priorities and its successful integration into the ASEAN community. Your Excellency, few individuals have witnessed Southeast Asia's transformation as closely as you have. From diplomacy and nation building to regional cooperation and leadership at the highest level, your experience offers perspectives that are truly unique. It is therefore a privilege for all of us to learn directly from you today. At a time of growing global uncertainty, we can all benefit from the insights of a leader who has consistently demonstrated the importance of dialogue, trust building, reconciliation, and international cooperation. These are qualities that remain essential not only for effective leadership, but also for peace and stability in this region and beyond. Your Excellency, thank you once again for joining us today and for helping us preserve and pass on the lessons of your remarkable journey to the next generation of leaders. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Watanabe-san, for your remarks. On to the next segment. Please allow me to welcome the Fellow of the ERIA School of Government for his introductory remarks. Please welcome Dr. Romora Edward Sitorus.
Bon dia, Excellencia, Sirano Itabut, Sirahotu. Good morning, and thank you for being with us. My name is Romora Edward Sitorus, a fellow of the ERIA School of Government. Since my fellowship began, one question from discussion with Professor Aizawa and President Watanabe has stayed with me. What story can Southeast Asia share with the world about the leadership and governance excellence? With Timor-Leste joining the ASEAN family as its 11th and newest member, one important lesson stands out. How did Timor-Leste and Indonesia resolve their conflict, reconcile, and build a lasting friendship? To understand that very lesson, I was led to a one man in particular, President José Ramos-Horta. His story is one of a kind. As I studied his life and works, three things about him continue to resonate. a life of service, a heart of human rights, and a humble yet creative spirit. First, his life of service. At 18, the colonial government exiled him to Mozambique for condemning its neglect of the poor. He returned and was exiled again for opposing military rule. Then in 1975, 3 days before Indonesia's intervention, he left once more, this time for 24 years. Yet, this did not stop him from making a breakthrough. At just 25, he became the youngest person ever to address the United Nations Security Council, and in doing so, become the voice of the voiceless of Timor-Leste. In 1992, he designed the CNRM Peace Plan, built on human rights, trust, and his people's rights to choose their own future. That work earned him the Nobel Peace Prize and helped carry Timor-Leste through the 1999 referendum to independence. He has since served as foreign minister, as prime minister, and as president for 2 terms in 2007 and again in 2022. He is also a transformational nation builder. Since 1999 until today, life expectancy in Timor-Leste has risen from 58 to 70. Electricity now reaches nearly every household. Roads and networks across the country are modernizing fast. That is remarkable progress. Second, his heart for human rights. After Timor-Leste gained its independence, he helped create a Truth and Reconciliation Commission at home to mend the wounds within Timorese society. He intensified his effort in the field by establishing, together with Indonesia, the Commission of Truth and Friendship, which was the world's first bilateral truth commission. He achieved all of this as a shrewd, creative diplomat who is exceptionally adept at playing the long game. His heart for peace and justice enabled Timor-Leste to punch above its weight and build warm, lasting friendship with Indonesia's president and other world leaders. And he did all of this despite a great personal loss. He lost 3 of his siblings in the long-running conflict for Timor-Leste independence. He managed to get safely abroad with almost nothing, living on the kindness of friends and his work as journalist. And yet, as president, he gave away half his salary and his bonuses, handed his travel allowances to his cleaner and drivers, and gave his speaking fees to shelter, protect, and counsel women and girls victims of violence. If a man who began with such humble means and so much against him could build a lasting peace, then we too can find the courage and the confidence to take up the work of peace in our country and beyond. Third, his humble yet creative spirit. It is that very spirit, open and approachable, that is how we at ERIA come to reach President Ramos-Horta. We emailed him in the morning, and by the evening, he had replied himself with the most welcoming words to accept our invitation. We felt that same sense of humility at his presidential palace in Dili. No iron gates, no armed guards, accessible to everyone, and especially to children. So what is his secret to building peace and reconciliation? In his own words, it is the following: in victory, be magnanimous. Never seek to humiliate your adversary. If he is in his knees, hold his hands and plead with him to rise. Walk halfway to meet the vanquished, embrace them, and invite them into a new enterprise of peace, a new future for all. Ladies and gentlemen, it is an extraordinary privilege to learn from a defender of human rights, a founding voice of Timor-Leste's diplomacy, a Nobel laureate who has not only imagined peace, but built it. Let us listen and let us learn from President José Ramos-Horta. Obrigado, Barak. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Romora, for your remarks. Now, distinguished guests, it is my distinct honor to invite the former Foreign Minister of Republic of Indonesia. Please welcome His Excellency Hasan Wirayuda.
Presidents of the Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste, His Excellency President Ramos-Horta, President of ERIA, Professor Tetsuya Watanabe, and my good friends, Professor Nobu Aizawa, the Director of Public Policy Schools of ERIA, Excellencies, Ambassadors, ladies and gentlemen. It is both a pleasure and a distinct privilege for me to introduce a leader who in many ways needs no introductions. President José Ramos-Horta served as President of Timor-Leste from 2007 to 2012. And following a free and democratic elections, was elected once again in 2022 to serve a second term until 2027. He is today the longest serving president of the Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste. Yet, this fact alone does not fully capture the remarkable life journey of a man who occupies the highest office in his country. President Ramos-Horta's rise to national and international prominence was shaped by perseverance, sacrifice, and unwavering commitments to his people's right to self-determination. His political activisms began at a young age, while East Timor was still a Portuguese colony. Following in the footsteps of his father, who had himself been exiled for political reasons, the young Ramos-Horta was sent into exile in Mozambique, by the colonial administrations from 1970 to 1971. Upon his return, he became actively involved in the political awakening that followed Portugal's Carnation's revolutions of 1974. He was among the founders of the Timorese Social Democratic Associations, which later evolved into Fretilin, a revolutionary Front for an Independent East Timor. The political transition was turbulent. Rival political groups emerged, tensions escalated, and by 1975, a brief civil war has erupted. Following Fretilin declarations of independence on the 28th of November 1975, Indonesia launched its military interventions 9 days later. 3 days before Indonesia's forces entered Dili, Ramos-Horta left the country and began what would become a second exile, this time lasting 25 years. As the international spokesperson for the Timorese independence, he made his diplomatic debut at the United Nations Security Council in December 1975, when he was only 25 years old. From that moment onward, he dedicated his life to securing international support for the cause of East Timor self-determination. Living in exile for a quarter of a century was undoubtedly difficult. Yet President Ramos-Horta used those years not only to advocate for his peoples, but also to prepare himself intellectually and politically for the future. He pursued studies in international law, human rights, and international relations at high learning institutions in Australia, New Zealand, the United States, and Europe. Broadened both his expertise and his international network. His tireless efforts were recognized globally when in 1996 he was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize jointly with Bishop Carlos Philip Ximenez Bello for their work towards, and I quote, "a just and peaceful solutions to conflict in East Timor." The award significantly strengthened international awareness and support for the Timorese cause. Throughout those years, President Ramos-Horta became one of the most effective advocates at the United Nations. He actively engaged in debates at the General Assembly, the Commission on Human Rights, and numerous international forums where the future of East Timor was discussed. My own professional path crossed with his during that period. From 1989 to 1993, I served in Geneva as Minister Counselor for Political Affairs, responsible for human rights matters. It was there that I came to know José Ramos-Horta, not as a colleague or friend at first, but as a counterpart across the negotiating table. For him, the Commission on Human Rights provided an important platform to advance the cause of East Timor. For me, representing Indonesia, it was often what I would describe as stomach-ache diplomacy. Yet, despite our opposing positions, we always maintain mutual respect and professional courtesy. In multilateral diplomacy, one learns that today's opponent may become tomorrow's partner. We understand each other's mission. We respect each other's convictions. We never regarded each other as enemy. History would eventually prove that lessons correct. The final chapter of the East Timor issue was a difficult one for Indonesian diplomacy. The violence surrounding the 1999 referendum brought Indonesia before a special sessions of the United Nations Commission on Human Rights. At that critical moment, I was serving again in Geneva as Indonesia's ambassador to the United Nations. This year that followed witnessed intense debates of accountability, justice, and reconciliations. Various options were considered, including international and national judicial mechanisms. Ultimately, however, Indonesia and Timor-Leste choose a different path, a bilateral process aimed at truth, reconciliations, healing, and friendships. Our relationship changed fundamentally after Timor-Leste achieved its independence in 2002. President Ramos-Horta became the first foreign minister of Timor-Leste, while I was serving as Indonesia's foreign minister. For the next several years, we worked closely together to transform a difficult and painful history into foundations for friendships and cooperations. Together, we sought international support. We traveled together to the United Nations, met with Secretary Generals and the UN Security Council, and from there met with General Colin Powell, the United States Secretary of State. We worked very closely and helped establish the Commissions of Truth and Friendships in 2005. The acceptance of the Commission's report by the leaders of both countries in 2008, in July 2008, effectively closed a dark chapter in our shared history and opened a new era of partnerships between Indonesia and Timor-Leste. Last month, President Ramos-Horta graciously conferred upon me the Order of Timor-Leste in recognition of my modest contribution to strengthen relations between our two countries. I remain deeply honored and sincerely grateful to you, Mr. President, for that gesture. Ladies and gentlemen, over the years I have had the privilege of observing President Ramos-Horta both as an advocate, a diplomat, a foreign minister, a prime minister, and a president. I have come to know him as a man of deep convictions, strategic visions, humility, and generosity of spirit. He possesses the rare ability to remain steadfast in principle while extending a hand of friendship to former adversaries. His life demonstrates that reconciliation is not an act of forgetting the past, but rather an act of courage in building a better future. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is therefore my great honor to introduce to the podium, in this podium, statements, Nobel Peace Laureate, Champion of Reconciliations, and President of the Democratic Republic of Timor-Leste. Excellency, I thank you very much.
Thank you, Bapak Hasan, for your remarks. Before we continue to the most awaited session, we are going to have a photo session. So for the first photo, may I invite to the stage President José Ramos-Horta, Mr. Tetsuya Watanabe, and Professor Nobuhiro Aizawa. May I invite Mr. President to be in the stage? Thank you. Aizawa Sensei, we're going to have a photo session. Cameraman, may take pictures. Please smile to the camera. 1, 2, 3, smile. Smile, 1, 2, 3. Thank you. For the second photo, may I please invite Ambassador Elisa, Ambassador Roberto, and Bapak Hasan Wirayuda to join the photo session. Please smile to the camera. Please smile to the camera. 1, 2, 3, smile. 1, 2, 3. Thank you. Do we have good pictures? Ladies and gentlemen, yeah, you may be seated. Thank you. Mr. President, you may be seated. Ambassador, you may be seated. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now arrived at the highlight of today's program. Our esteemed guest today is internationally recognized for his lifelong commitment to peace and diplomacy. His leadership and vision continue to inspire many across the region and beyond. It is a profound honor for ERIA to welcome His Excellency José Ramos-Horta. Moderating the session is the Dean and Managing Director of ERIA School of Government, Professor Nobuhiro Aizawa. Aizawa-sensei, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Talia. Thank you very much, everyone, for waiting. President José Ramos-Horta has kindly suggested to have this dialogue session as we can see how he is open for discussion despite of his position in his country. So we would like to start our conversation style of our leadership lecture. And also, I wanted to remind you that he is also welcoming questions from all the audience after our session. So please have your question in mind as we will open the floor after our coordinated dialogue. So first of all, Mr. President, as we congratulate Timor-Leste's full membership to ASEAN, you have famously said previously, it's easier to enter heaven than to join ASEAN. I think that was Padino's institution that he made this remark at the FPCI. How is it now? Because you mentioned that it was beyond heaven. May I start the question then?
Good morning. But please allow me first to say some quick words. One, listening to the very gracious remarks by previous speakers, by Sanwar Yuda, I thought, God, I'm still alive. So, usually you do this kind of presentation in a funeral, obituary, part of the obituary. And second, I would like to say, again, introductory, I knew many Indonesian diplomats over the years. One thing is, we were fighting back then in the halls of the UN, whether in New York or Geneva, but never once an Indonesian diplomat disrespected me. Some even invite me for lunch, and I went for lunch with many of them. Sometimes we play tricks on the Indonesian side, because there was a non-aligned summit, ministerial meeting in Angola, great supporter of Timor. It is the host country that does the draft declaration. That there is a paragraph or two on East Timor. Obviously, the Indonesian side, very influential in non-aligned movement, in the ministerial meeting in Luanda, they objected to that paragraph. Few others supported Indonesia. Some supported us. Normally, if there is no consensus on that paragraph, you withdraw. Our friends, the Angolans, did the opposite. And they said, because there is no consensus in taking it out, the paragraph stays. One day, one of the more radical Indonesian diplomats in New York, Warabi, suddenly his name came to mind. Hadi Warabi. Yeah. He invited me for lunch. I also had lunch with him, although he's not Javanese, because the Javanese are always a bit more like, they are very typical diplomats. Very charming. They never say no. They never say yes. So you have it. But Hadi, I think, is from Molucca or somewhere, more aggressive. But he invited me to lunch, and he said, your friends, Angola, they invented some new procedure. He told me about this. Another time, then much later in life, one young Indonesian diplomat from the embassy in London, obviously I thought, he cannot be a Javanese, he's too aggressive to be a Javanese. Well, he chased me. I had a long 2 weeks, I think, of lecture tours. I began at Harvard and into California, into that's last town in the West and the West Coast. I had enough of him, so every stop he asked the same question, challenged me. And then very aggressively he asked me, he said, because I was arguing for a referendum, and he said, you never allow referendum, free choice for your people. You declare independence unilaterally. Now we are talking about referendum. And so before I answered him, I said, let me tell the audience who this young man is. He's actually not a student. He's from the Indonesian embassy in London. He was sent to harass me all these 2 weeks with the same question. And that is my very good friend, Dino Jalal. But then I tried to embarrass him more. And I said, because he followed me all the time, and he reminded me at the time the tragic story of John Hinckley, Jodie Foster, Ronald Reagan were in the news. He reminded me of John Hinckley, who's obsessed with Jodie Foster, and he followed me everywhere. God, he was so upset. He said, I'm not John Hinckley, I'm not gay, I'm not following it. And then, because I said about referendum and so on, he came to the podium. You're not supposed to do that. Stay in there. He came to the podium with my book. He said, show me, I have read your book 10 times. You have no reference to a referendum here. That's Dino Jalal. We're very good friends. Of course, even then, we are arguing and talk. So that's one characteristic of the Indonesian diplomats. But even the military, there was an Indonesian major general in New York, Agus Marpau. I don't know whether he was a general at that time. He was already in New York. So he took me to lunch, to dinner, time to time. And one day he said, we have you in high regard in Indonesia. I said, listen, if you have me in such a high regard, why don't you make me president of Timor-Leste? He said, God, you can never talk seriously. So, but that's the type of, and the first time ever I came to Indonesia, June 74. I came then traveling around Jakarta alone because I was already a good friend with the Governor General, Brigadier General El Tari in Kupang. I had money to get only to Kupang. El Tari paid my ticket to Jakarta. And he assigned one of his aides called Luis Taoling to accompany me. And he told Luis Taoling, stay with Pak Ramos. Don't allow him, don't let him alone. Don't let anyone mislead him. Well, I was put in some lodgement here, a nice lodgement. And then Luis Taoling, they told me he was a backing agent. Well, if he was a backing agent, he was very ineffective, very irresponsible, because he arrived in Jakarta, he disappeared, never stayed with me. Back then, Kupang was a miserable town, like Delhi. You end up in Jakarta, well, you go to the nightlife in Jakarta. So I was alone. But then how I move around in Jakarta? Either on a scooter or becak. I drove around I didn't drive around, someone else driving the becak. And they managed to meet with Adam Malik. So I'm probably the only living person today in Indonesia, in Timor, who had the honor of meeting Malik. So, and met many people, Agus Parengkuan, journalist, Hari Kawilarang, George Arredondo, Sabang Siagian, even gave me money to eat here in Jakarta. I met Yusuf Wanlandi in 75, before Ali Mortopo, all of them. And another point is, in all of these that you also kindly mentioned, I was only like the messenger. I was following the directions from Shanana. Shanana Guzman is the one who really led the people, our people, towards independence. and for reconciliation with his extraordinary authority. And he said, I learned to love Indonesian people during my time in Sipinang. Sipinang, for those who might know, is a famous or infamous prison. And in prison, he made friends with everybody. And the people you might not, maybe sometime in Indonesia, might be uncomfortable to talk about it. Who else was in prison with Shanana? A gentleman called Eddie Tansil, Mapindu Bank. One day, $800 million disappeared from Mapindu Bank. Eddie Tansil was arrested, became friends with Shanana in prison. And Shanana talked about him. Anyway, this is only to say about the very unique relationship Timor and Indonesia. And you know, Shanana became the only prisoner in the world here at the time who was taken out of prison, taken to Istana Merdeka, to a guest house there, where he had dinner with Nelson Mandela. How did this happen? When I heard at one point that Nelson Mandela was going to Indonesia, I immediately organized myself. I went to South Africa. Arriving there, nothing had been organized by my friends in the ANC. And I said, I'm going to see Mandela. I don't care. I will stay here 2 months, 6 months. They were getting really aggravated with me because some they were commenting, God, he's so arrogant. He's so stubborn. They said, he's very busy. But I said, no problem, I stay. 2 weeks later, a phone call came to a place where I was staying. The president will see you. So I was taken to Mandela's home in Johannesburg, taken straight to the first floor, into his bedroom. He was laying in bed, awake. He looked at me. You were the one who said you wouldn't live until you see me. So here I am. And he said, I've been in hospital for 10 days on knee operation. He had problems of his knees. But I heard that you want to see me, and I didn't want you to wait longer. So, sorry, I received you in my bed. So I simply said, President, I know you went to Indonesia. Please see our leader. I explained, Shanana, he didn't know, etc. Well, then he did come, and did talk with President Suharto about meeting with Shanana. First, Suharto said no. He insisted, and Suharto authorized. So the only situation in the world is someone, the president, Suharto, Indonesia, very powerful gentleman, proud, and he agreed. But this also shows the very nature of our adversaries. Indonesia, very different. And not only the power of Mandela, but the way even in Suharto era the issue was approached. So anyway, this is only a correction, but not only Shanana. In our country, after the independence, everybody. Maria Alcatiri, at the time, Prime Minister during the transition, very important. All the fighters, the great commandantes, Taur Mata Ruak, Lere Anand Timur, our current Chief of Staff of the Armed Forces, Falur Ratelai, all of them supported, even the new generation leader, Renetil, they all supported the national reconciliation among Timorese, heal the wounds of the Timorese with each other, and reach out to Indonesia. And Indonesia showed what it is, a great country that is not tempted by petty revenge. Because we separated, Indonesia could say, now you are on your own. They wouldn't have to do anything else, because all the other African countries were guided by Indonesia's attitude, Indonesia, Timor-Leste. So, January 2000, before independence even, the UN was still there, Gus Dur came to Timor-Leste with 2 military aircraft cargo plane bringing humanitarian assistance. Then Ibu Mega, President of Indonesia, came for the evening of handover of independence from UN to Timor-Leste. Then came Gus Dur. Before Gus Dur was the first to come as president before our independence. Then came Ibu Mega. But all of that, before that, in the very specific important time, when violence started to resign, economic financial crisis, violence in Ambon, Kalimantan, everywhere. In the midst of all of this, B.J. Habibie, would have said, no, not even Habibie, the military would have said that Habibie, cancel the referendum result. No, we don't accept, because they shouldn't be the first time that an international agreement holding a referendum or election, then some group don't accept the result, and the result was never honored. Till today. The TNI accepted. The TNI could have said no to reformation, because what's happening in Kalimantan, Ambon, Jakarta, all of that was a recipe for a coup, for a military takeover, even for less in some situations. So it was the TNI, Habibie, then came Guldu, then came Ibu Mega, who had the courage, the technical to attend our independence celebration. So I want to say this in tribute to the Indonesian leader, society. And we never accepted an international tribunal of any sort. I argue with Sherry Melu, I argue with Kofi Annan, that we will not agree, we are not agreeing with an international tribunal. So it never happened. Anyway, so that's, now I answer your question.
Thank you very much. I think I would like to follow up on that final point, rather than, we'll talk about the post-heaven ASEAN later. Yes. Okay, let me start off with the time you heard from President Habibie on his decision to open up the choice of referendum. How surprising was that for you? Because you have long fighted diplomatically on those moments. But of course, it was the reformasi context in Indonesia. Did you see that happen? Or how surprising was it on your end to listen to it?
Let me tell you this. In May 95, before I won the Nobel Peace Prize, I had my first ever big interview with CNN. The program is called Diplomatic License. The journalist Richard Roth, May 95. In that interview, I told Richard Roth, within 2 to 3 years, the Suharto regime will collapse. Over economic crisis, increasing illegitimacy resulting from corruption and mismanagement of the economy. Then it will be easier to negotiate a resolution of the Timor conflict. That's what I said. The journalist, obviously, you need to hear the other side. So he went to see Ambassador Wisnu Mutri, very elegant gentleman. He looked at him, I always look at him. He has to be a Javanese aristocrat. Tall, elegant, and but not very eloquent when he speaks. So because he's not very eloquent, I thought, yeah, go. Well, he made a very witty remark, funny. He said, the journalist asked him, Ambassador, Mr. Ramos-Horta said within 2 to 3 years, economic crisis, Suharto will fall, blah, blah. Wisnu Mutri answered, Mr. Ramos-Horta is always too optimistic. Well, May 97, in 97, the economic crisis began. First in Thailand with the devaluation of the baht, then quickly spread throughout, including South Korea. Yeah. So that's what brought about to the that was the timing for the. And Habibie then, I remember when I heard Habibie I happened to be in Atlanta visiting the headquarters of CNN. I had a few friends there, they invited me, and I was in every program. Then one of the journalists rushed to where I was. José, come, Indonesian president is speaking. Habibie was speaking to a group of Indonesian businessmen. And he said to the meeting, by the end of this year, I want to see the East Timor question resolved. And he said, in a typical Habibie way, that place has only rocks, has nothing. And let's focus on the other province of Indonesia. So that's the first time I heard Habibie. And I remember commenting innocently to someone, yeah, he's actually right. We have so many rocks everywhere in the country. By then, we didn't know of all the minerals. We didn't know about the oil and gas, but not all other minerals that we have. So that's how I heard. And then, but there was something that before him, and that's why I validate the positive role of TNI. I think it was during the crisis, the demonstrations, and the head of the Indonesian Armed Forces made a public comment. It is time for president to step down. Yeah. And that's why it's so hard to step down, because the army, TNI, no longer and they offer him support.
So that moment, you were convinced of the probability
Yes.
of Timor-Leste independence, not just a special autonomy.
No, it was one reason I won the Nobel Peace Prize had to do with a peace plan, which I presented to publicly, internationally, which later, when the Oslo Accord, the Palestinian Accord came out at the time, in the 90s, which led to Peace Prize for Arafat, Isaac Rabin and Shimon Peres, I think in 94. Very similar to what I had written for Timor. Mine was, I did that in 92. April 92, I delivered it to European Parliament. Few months later to the Council for Relations in New York, and it didn't get too much attention. But what I said, negotiations of Indonesia phase one. It came in 3 phases. Phase 1, I call it humanitarian phase. We don't talk about self-determination or about 27 provinces. We deal with the situation on the ground. Humanitarian phase means what? Release all prisoners, reduce the presence of the military, inviting international NGOs, the UN, to administer human rights situation, release prisoners. We need 2 years to implement this phase. After this phase, 2 years, then we move to what I call autonomy phase. Elections only in the territory to elect a local assembly, a local governor. 5 years. Economic development. At the end of 5 years, the sides meet, agree to do another 5 years, or go straight to a referendum. Or if we want to extend the 5 years, another 5 years, so 2 plus 5 will be 12 years. Then referendum. When I saw the Oslo Accord, very similar to what I had. And the Nobel Committee, when they awarded me, they said, they made reference to this peace plan. But by 99, no, it was no longer. The emotions in Indonesia itself, in Timor, was no possibility of, And I remember President Habibie himself, Indonesia worked also very fast. within 2 years. That was 97, 98, but 1 year later, the referendum.
Yes, when President Habibie called for the referendum, it was maybe less than a year to come to the vote. Was that how was that taken to you? Because yes, your plan was more than 10-year referendum plan, but President Habibie plan was so much shorter.
Well, I have to say one thing again. Totally understandable, the violence that happened. Many Timorese were supporting Indonesia for different reasons. In many situations, you support for ideological reasons. You support because you have already economic benefits. You don't want to lose them with a particular set of power at one point. So it is inconceivable that a majority, 100% would want independence. So that is you can anticipate there will be violence. However, the referendum had many flaws. Flaw is that there was no agreement on cantonment. Cantonment of the Indonesian troops. The agreement actually did opposite. Security was in the hands of Indonesian army. If we had insisted, no, cannot be in the hands of the Indonesian army, there will be no referendum. Indonesia would not accept. And that's when it comes the extraordinary leadership of Xanana. The Portuguese and the UN, in this, they would listen to Xanana. Xanana said, no, ahead with a referendum. We have been waiting for 20 years. There has been violence. So now, just because of some violence, we postpone or cancel the referendum. He understood about the window of opportunity. That's what I always tell my Palestinian friends. When I gave a speech once in London School of Economics, one young Palestinian came to talk to me. He said, how? Explain. You are so small country. You are already in the band. We are big. We're millions of people. And we are not. I said this. I don't want to appear to be lecturing anyone. Because sometimes, you talk and then you appear to be lecturing. I hate that. I told him, I said, listen, what I can tell you is this. One, we never miss an opportunity. Even that opportunity might look ridiculous. You don't miss it. So for many reasons, in West Bank, in Palestine, the divisions in Palestinians. Arafat was in New York with Shimon Peres, Zach Rabin, and Bill Clinton. They had an agreement that would give West Bank, Gaza, 95%. I put it on paper, maybe less. Some critics said, no, 95%. Well, but I would say, get the 95%. So that's what I always say. The tragedy in Palestine is of missing opportunities. With international support, international sympathy, with a good man, Isaac Rabin and Shimon Peres. And at the time, the peace movement was stronger in Israel. So for us, and Xanana then what? He ordered the cantonment of our fighters. PNI, not cantonment, but that again is shows the super intelligence of Xanana. He knew if you don't order the cantonment of our fighters, the militias, because the Indonesian army didn't have to engage the militia gangs, fighting with Valentil, that's civil war. So he ordered cantonment. And although the Valentil fighters, they were very frustrated. And then other acts of strategies of Xanana. From when the Indonesian military were withdrawing, Xanana was already back in Dili, in the mountains. He went back. I live. He came down to Dili to farewell the Indonesian military. I was still not back in Delhi. I was in Sydney. I watched television. I saw Xanana at the airport, hugging, shaking hands, smiling with Indonesian generals. I was happy. And that is a statement.
Wow. Okay. Thank you very much, President. So you also praised in your remark about the wisdom of TNI of Indonesia. Were you prepared for any, atrocities after, especially when the Indonesia, whether or not they accepted the referendum result or not, and the NPR accepted, but were you prepared that NPR would be rejecting that?
No, the political climate in Indonesia at the time was people were tired. And I remember in June 99, I came to Jakarta. I was hesitating to come, not before the referendum, because it was Shannon who called a meeting with all the Timorese in East Timor, those in Indonesia, abroad, Australia, and elsewhere. And I was on their list to come. I was a bit worried. I spoke to Shannon on the phone. I said, God, I think they hate me. I'm not going. He said, no, come. He said, the Indonesians, they respect people who are consistent. They don't change, back and forth according to opportunities. Do come. And I have to say, from the airport, they whisked me to a hotel near the airport. Arriving there was like chaos. At least 200 journalists were in the, lobby area. I was taken to the room meeting with Shannon. And then one of persons working with Shannon, Inez Almeida, he came in and she said, you have to go out meet with the journalists, only 5 minutes. Otherwise they are not leaving. I went out, absolutely, I was mobbed by the journalists. I had to jump to the reception desk to be higher so that I could talk to them. One journalist even fell in front of me. I had to lift her up. And they broke vases, and then Shannon was upset with me. I said, well, I didn't break the vases. Well, you went out. Well, anyway. So I think we paid the hotel for the vases broken down. And never once in this country, wherever Shannon went, or me, or any Timorese, today, back then, ever had any gesture of hostility. Never. No Timorese living in this country, students, all Timorese who serve and still serving in Indonesian institutions. Not one was fired and were told, go back to your country. We have a Timorese general with 3-star now for passers. And I was in West Papua in 2018, 17. There, in West Papua, Jayapura. I went with the Indonesian government knowledge, and I met one brigadier general, Timorese from Likisa. He was in his 40s. So many, one is deputy minister of agriculture. So that's one day remarkable. Not a single Timorese studying in Indonesia ever felt discriminated. And that is so. The reconciliation is not only documents that officials signed. No, it is lived by people.
Yes, I think you live with this process, but it's an amazing feature from outside of Indonesia and Timor-Leste. So I just wanted to clarify several points.
Oh, your question, sorry, I didn't deliberately ignore your question. That I said more difficult to get to heaven. No, more difficult to get to ASEAN than to heaven.
Oh, we'll come back to that. No. I just wanted to push this reconciliation process because it's so important, Mr. President. Because I'm sure after independence, every country who has suffered long to get to independence, the leaders have to face both the call for justice from your own people, and also that becomes the political support of the leadership from you to transition from an independence fighter period to a governance period. That is the most of the country. You have to face that. but you also have to have a workable relationship with Indonesia. And also you have to bring political stability. You have multitude of very dividing, diverging political calls. And then you have designed these two, truth commission, one for domestic and one together with Indonesia. Can you walk us through the strategy with you and Prime Minister Shanana? That in what way did you try to balance this call for justice and call for political support domestically and also building relations with India? The balance between.
Well, my line of argument at that time, and I repeated again and again, is the gravest act of injustice committed against Timor-Leste is the 24-year of conflict in which many Western democracies participated, directly or indirectly. In 98, with the fall of Suharto, a process of reformasi, democracy began, and with Indonesia agreed with a popular consultation and agreed to leave. That was the greatest act of redressing a grave injustice. And then I said, God, Indonesia also went through their history incredible violence. And we, from the third wall, I use still the word third wall. I think it was first coined by Samir Amin, economist of Egypt, great man whom I met once in Paris years ago. The developing country. We are so stupid. The Soviets create their Stalinism, Marxism, Leninism. The Chinese, a new version. And then others decide to more American capitalism. And we are so smart in the third world that we join all these ideological fights. So in Indonesia, you try to replicate here Maoist revolution or whatever, and so many around the world, in Central America, in Cuba. Well, look at the result. And so Indonesians suffer. And plus other domestic situations. I say, no, enough is enough. Yes, Indonesians are the ones who one day have to revisit their history and face their history, not us. We look after our dead, our survivors. That's our responsibility. And how to do it? First, forgive each other. Because many Timorese, God, within the resistance itself, a lot of violence was perpetrated. But one thing, ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, never once in our struggle we touched a single Indonesian civilian. Thousands of farmers in Timor, school teachers, civil servants, not one. And when Indonesian military were captured in engagements with our fighters, wounded, taken to our base. Shannan himself, he said, he treated at least 2 their wounds. After a few months, they are dropped on the road, go back to your base. And they even say, in the beginning, we take out their boots, we keep the boots. But then they said, God, we felt bad about it. It's still in their boots. So they go with their boots. Because in the beginning, the Indonesian side have very nice boots, so let's keep the boots. And during the struggle itself, many of our wounded people were hidden and treated by Indonesian military doctors. Some Indonesian military families adopted children. Adopted. They are not sequestered, kidnapped, or anything. No, they were adopted. I know some senior volunteer elements, brigadier general level. After 99, they reunited with their now grown-up son, who was taken care of by a couple. So all of these humanity acts happen in the midst of some ugliness of the violence. Because of all of this, I said, no special tribunal. Then we went for national reconciliation, very lengthy process. The book, more than 1,000 pages, published in 4 languages, including Bahasa Indonesia. Then with Indonesia, at government level, we did friendship and reconciliation. I remember arguing with Kofi Annan in New York and Serge de Mello on the special tribunal, because Kofi Annan had a famous expression. He said, no justice, no peace, no democracy. And I said, Secretary General, when we knew each other well from before he became Secretary General. So when alone, I called him Kofi, he called me José, but officially, but that time was alone. And I told him, no, in front of other people, I said, listen, are you saying that Portugal is not a democracy? There's 50 years of dictatorship. Bloodless coup happened, overthrow the dictatorship. They didn't create any special national tribunal or international tribunal. And are we saying Portugal is not a democracy? No, it's quite a lively democracy. Spain, the same. Transition from Franco to democracy, no special tribunals to try anyone. South Africa under Mandela. So, and so based on that, I said, no, and with the son, with the expression we use a lot, and both sides look ahead, look to the future, and not to justice. Yes, one day Indonesians are the ones who have to reckon. But in our case, we are not going back to the past, meaning we are not going to try anyone, put anyone in jail, because in the past he or she was collaborating with the other side. No. Because, and Shannon was very, very blunt on that. If we are going to try anyone, where we start? With who? Let's start with ourselves first. Then everybody went silent. So in situations in many countries, in Palestine, Israel, and so on, God, Israelis, Palestinians, Arab friends, have to have the courage, the audacity, the generosity, the wisdom to end these centuries of hatred of violence. Because this hatred of violence is not even Arabic, not Palestinian, or not Jewish. Palestinians in general are the most hospitable people in the world. You go to an Arab home, God, you don't leave. You have to eat again and again. You are protected. And the Jewish, historically, they only spend on the side of the weak, because that is their history. That is their culture. So what happened in Israel is a total aberration to what Judaism taught them. So it means what? It is possible to come together. The worst of this violence, yes, that's the opportunity. Because they chose. No one is going to win this. Israel will sink further with this by the issue of the moral, of ethics. So that's our, I wouldn't say a lesson. That I hate to call it lesson, because we look at Vietnam. Oh, the Vietnamese, invaded by everybody, tons and tons of bombs fell on them during the Vietnam War. And then what? The best possible relationship with the same people who bombed them to Stone Age, the U.S. That is a statesmanship. So it's not only Timor and Indonesia. Look at many of them. Cambodians went through a tribunal, but in the end, after spending tens of millions of dollars on a tribunal, half a dozen went to court. I'm not saying it should be dismissed in any situation. But God, I would dare to say Israel makes some wise gesture, but serious. Make some wise gesture serious to resolve this. Drop the charge against Netanyahu and the others. Because what is more important? You try someone as if that's a great lesson for everybody, or this is an opportunity to end the war and move on the two-state solution. Because there are no other solutions. The two-state solution is the solution.
As you mentioned, drop.
Sorry for venturing into very difficult.
No, this is why we wanted you here today, because that is the most difficult part in every country, especially the kind of resentment within. I know you have a good relationship with the Indonesian side. You argued against the United Nations to bring no international tribunals. I think that is your thoughtfulness as a diplomat, but also domestically. I'm sure there were many leaders who are against yours and Shanana's ideas. And
You mean in Timor?
in Timor, yes.
No, we don't have any. Because when they disagree, they disappear.
Okay.
Sorry, I'm joking. Please don't quote that out of context. One day in Timor, a year ago, I was talking to students, and they knew I was joking because people threw garbage in the street. And I'm fed up because I always talk about this for 20 years. And then one day I said in a university, and there is a better solution, the Singapore solution. And that is scanning everybody who's there. God, the next day headline, Nobel, and they even didn't say president, Nobel laureate argue for canning people throw garbage.
Yes. I mean, yes, joking aside, I think, the 2008 accepting the report of the Commission of Truth and Friendship by the both head of the state, the leadership of the state. I think Indonesia had a very tough political negotiation to accept them. How about in Timor-Leste?
The overwhelming majority accepted the NGOs. Some NGOs, and their life, their activity is that you cannot, everybody agree with the government. And I often say, well, if you have political parties, you have to have opposition. Don't be upset when the opposition disagree with you, because if they don't disagree with you, they have either close the party or join you or whatever. So that's normal in a democracy. But in Timor is very minimum. Those who they no longer argue for no one argue for special tribunal. They argue more now is that on our side more recognition of the victims, and the victims ask that recognition. And when I say the victims, are not only the victims in the conflict with Indonesia, no, the domestic victims during some of the ugly violence among ourselves within the movement.
I mean, especially in 2008, you were ambushed as if like a coup to you. You were ambushed by the rebel leader, Alfredo Reynaldo, an assassination attempt. You were wounded. Fortunately, you survived. So you had a physical threat to you, right? But after that, you made a gesture of accepting and also, forgiving, not just
Again,
everybody.
And that was not a coup, was a renegade group. And then what happened? One morning I went out very early for exercise. And I had some military security guards. I went out alone with two. And then way back, in my absence, there was shootout in the house. When I heard the shootout, 500 meters away, one of the military told me, it's coming from the house. I said, let's go there. And there are, some people working there in my house. We cannot leave him alone. That's why I went. I walk. Then the military, they shoot out what happened. My military security in my house fired at the Reynaldo group because they came with weapons. And then when I arrived, I got shot. So after a few weeks of investigation, trial, I say, sorry. These things happen because the leaders fail to address the root causes of dissatisfaction in the army. So I pardon them off. Because people not out of the blue, they wanted to shoot someone. And the court were very harsh, 14 years for some, and so on. They all except those who died in that confrontation with the military.
I mean, you sound so reasonable in this, looking behind, but I'm sure if this happened in many other countries, the retaliation will be big. Democracy will be dead. And, the history of Timor-Leste might have been very different. What were the discussions with? Was your idea of forgiving, pardoning, was it a majority of reaction? Because, Shanana Guzman also was attacked. And when you are in a fragile situation, political situation after a young independent country, this is also a recipe of dictatorship as well. Yeah. But, we want to learn the recipe here for Timor-Leste. How did you maintain the democratic principle and not just maintaining forgiveness and reconciliation with the Indonesians, but within the Timor-Leste community?
Well, I have to say, I'm very proud. One of the great achievements in my country is that, our army, in 20 plus years, never staged a coup. There were no reason, the conditions that exist in were not. So, and increasingly very professional, very well behaved. You don't see much of human rights violation. Sporadically, sometimes happen here and there. Particularly when a military person goes to a party, they start drinking, then the girl didn't want to dance with him, they start fighting, the fight ends in the street. It happened a bit with American military, I heard, in Darwin. They from a bar, they go to the street. It happened. So, all the time. That's the basic. With the police, the same. Our two institutions overall, their behavior is very good, very professional. We have a zero political violence. We have a zero ethnic-based or religious-based tension. Zero. We have a 99 Catholic and not chauvinistic Catholic. We celebrate all the Muslim holidays. Well, of course, that's easy. You don't have to be very tolerant. So the Timorese love holidays. And, it could even have said, no, only Muslims have their day off. No, everybody unanimously support, no. Holiday for everybody, not only for the Muslims. I've been wanting to see how we can cut down the holidays because I think must be either the number one in the world with more holidays or number two.
Indonesia too.
Then we copy from Indonesia.
Yes, that is wonderful. But let me point you to another experience of yours. You were appointed to go to Guinea-Bissau as the special representative by the UN Secretary General, and you had seen how Guinea-Bissau struggled, and of course, after there was a coup in 2012 in Guinea-Bissau, and then you went there. So I know that Timor-Leste, the military group and the police force are very disciplined. You saw the situation in Guinea-Bissau. If you compare, what lesson did you see? Because I'm sure you went there, you advocated, you learned a lot, and then you came back to Timor-Leste again. So the line is very thin between what's happening in Timor-Leste, the success of Timor-Leste, and the situation of other places. You were there firsthand. Could you tell us the insights when you compare the two?
But before I answer that one, I had to tell you my first experience in mediating a situation was in 98. before Timor independence. And that was mediation in Colombia. I had been to Colombia a year earlier, following the Nobel campaign, the Nobel Prize. I traveled around Latin America, promoting Timor and so on. Then one day I was in Europe. I got a phone call from someone in UNICEF in Bogota, and they said, we have this situation, hostages, 15 teenage girls, kidnapped by ELN, Ejército de Liberación Nacional, and they are the ones that till now, they have not joined the peace agreement. And no one is able to convince them to leave, but we believe you could do. Can you help? Anyway, to make the story short, it was complicated, 2 weeks. First time, someone managed to get hostage released without paying any ransom. Because when I met with them, I said, they knew who I was already, the rebel leaders, and they admired the Timor struggle, all of them. And I said, hermanos, speaking in Spanish, I'm not American, I'm not German, and that means I don't have money. So, because they kidnapped for ransom. So I'm not going to pay you anything. So do you want to continue the conversation, or because you know I don't have any money, so what's the point? And no, continue. I went to the prison. There was a high security prison near Medellin. So I first went to Medellin, then a smaller plane to near the security prison. And I went in around 2 in the afternoon. I left 9 p.m. with agreement. And who are in prison? 2 priests, both were Jesuits. They were the political mind of the ELN in the mountains. The military, military agreed. I said, please, no activities in the area. The police, Colombian police agreed. I met with the President of Colombia. I met with the Foreign Minister of Colombia, Maria Emma Mejia. Beautiful Maria Emma. When she was the Foreign Minister, everybody else in Latin America, in Africa, who never been any interest in Colombia, they start having something to talk with Colombia about, just because of Maria Emma Mejia. And so I met with all of them. They all agree. I met with the nuncio, their advice, and so on. And when I left prison, I had already the agreement from the political leader. The military gave me radio equipment so that from the cell, they can communicate with the leaders up in the mountain. The next day, a helicopter to distant area. I spent 3 more hours with the rebels holding the girls. But at one point I used very harsh language with them, with the kidnappers. And the people who accompany me, they're all very stressed because, oh God, the way I talk, they will be very upset. And I said to them, in my country, at the time we're still fighting, if ever we touch a civilian, children, I quit. And I told them, very blunt, in Spanish, yo no creo en una lucha, en una causa, en una religión que secuestren niños, que asesinan civiles. I told them, I don't believe in any cause, any religion that kidnap people, children, kill people. And I would quit the struggle if I ever hear that we do that. Well, they answered, they reacted, okay, they will be taken away and so, but then I flew to the mountains, thousands of people there waiting for this 15. But it's interesting, when I was up in the jungle with the helicopter, the ICRC, I saw the 15 girls scattering around the particular area. Some of them with their captors in some romantic mood. I said, wow, this is one case of, I call it Stockholm Syndrome. I was thinking. So anyway, in Guinea-Bissau, the coup makers gone, they had done so many coups before. So Ban Ki-moon asked me to go when I left office in Timor. First, I worked primarily with the military first. The first people I met were the military who did the coup. But you have to meet with all the regional leaders. And there was a lot of division within them between ECOWAS, the West African Sub-Region Organization, and the mother organization in Addis Ababa. The African Charter, if there is a coup, membership of the country in the organization is automatically suspended. Within ECOWAS, there were differences. Nigeria, Senegal, Cote d'Ivoire, Mali, Burkina Faso, they didn't agree with that. Plus, Guinea-Bissau was known as narco state. I had fights with the UN on that. How can you label a country narco state? Just because they are small, they're vulnerable, just because some people use the drug. And because the reports going to New York, I have to sign them. I refuse to sign unless you take this out. They had to take it out. And when you have a mission like one I did, everybody put pressure on the draft content of the resolution. So my resolution, I had 2 Security Council resolutions, total something like 60 paragraphs. We call it Christmas tree. NGOs put pressure on their friends in Security Council, so everybody put something, you end up with. And because I was a political appointee, I was Under Secretary General, I was not a career UN, I had the luxury of ignoring New York sometimes. So I said, I focus on the coup, on the military returning to the barracks and holding elections. Because my mandate include reform, security sector reform, justice sector reform, all blah, 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 all of this. This is the prerogative of the sovereign entity, not the UN. And then I even dare the audacity of doing other things like I was told, I found out there were hundreds of solar panels and with the poles in a warehouse of the UN. I said, what is this doing here? Oh, some country donated. We cannot distribute because the UN sanctions on Guinea-Bissau. I say, God, our mission also has authority to impose sanctions. This is New York. Let them imagine things. So what I did, I called the governors of 4 provinces because I didn't have budget to carry all those things to their province. Do you like some solar panels? And the post there. He said, yeah. Okay, do you have a truck to pick up? Yeah. So I released them to them. And then I was told by some of my staff, life changed in the communities. In the evening, it's always dark. So when we put the electrical poles, the solar, immediately the local women, business, they start selling things under the light. Mm-hmm. Some young people start gathering and studying at nighttime. And so sometimes they went down something completely unrelated to the reality on the ground. But Ban Ki-moon was great. Meeting with him and other Undersecretary Generals, but he said, do implement the resolution as you see fit. If it goes well, we all applaud. If it goes wrong, I take responsibility. There, Ban Ki-moon. That is a leader. So I was given that. In the end, I was praised by the African Union, by ECOWAS, became good friends with Senegal, and then they called me back to New York after finishing in Arizona to chair a panel called High-Level Independent Panel on UN Peace Operations. I end with a comment on that, only to say that's another lesson for me with the UN. Not that I was not aware. I told my colleagues, that is to review the peace operations, how to streamline, eliminate the turf war between special political missions and peacekeeping. They're almost like two worlds apart. For many years, I dealt with the special political missions. By then, I was working with peacekeeping. sometimes when I go through to get to peacekeeping department, you have to go through it, especially to me. I had to go like this because so they wouldn't say, "Oh, the traitor is going betray us." So, proposal to merge peacekeeping and the special political mission into one chain. But then we did a report, and as I told my colleagues, we will be able to produce a report, a recommendation that will merit a summa cum laude from some top university in the world. But we will run the real risk, that our PhD dissertation will be filed, put in a library, gathering dust. Worse if you have your dissertation end up in the UN library, because no one goes to the UN library. Well, almost that's what happened. Our report, they implement, I think, only one of the recommendations. Recommendation that comes under the direct responsibility authority Secretary General, yeah, he can implement, and they did implement, to merge a special political mission, but everything else had to go through the General Assembly or Security Council, forget. So that is one of the lessons I learned. Not that I was not already aware, but and that I couldn't change because that was totally. And then Antonio Guterres was elected Secretary General. I lobbied very hard to support him. He called me to New York to join a group called High Level Board on Mediation, because he made mediation his priority. Well, easier said than done. Conflict prevention, mediation, we all talk about it. Couldn't we have prevented Crimea from happening? Or once Crimea happened, why don't you activate every prevention mechanism, every channel of diplomacy to prevent anything worse than that? Nothing was done. More hostility, demonizing Russia, that was humiliated as a superpower. And then many other situations, like one conversation with Papa Francisco in Rome, he was taken aback when he looked at me. I told him, Su Santidade, I said, I'm totally disappointed with the global leadership. How all this thing can happen and it was not prevented? He was taken aback because I was very emotional. And he was able only to answer, pero vamos continuar a luchar por la paz. And this, where is it? So, prevention of conflict. How can we strengthen ASEAN prevention mechanism to make it more effective? Because prevention has to be at the very highest level. But when at the very highest level, leaders are not committed to prevent a war, a conflict, well, then no mechanism that the ASEAN can have, or who can have, the European Union or whatever you can, no. It has to be at the very highest level. And then, yes, when you have your conversation at the highest level, then yes, you deploy specialists, experts, to buy time, to postpone any decision. And so the world is a mess because all these mechanisms fail, leadership fail, and affect all of us.
That's a great segue to now our ASEAN question, because you're right that you're now a full member of ASEAN. You have the highest position to represent your country. Now, the biggest issue of ASEAN, of course, we cannot miss to address the issue of Myanmar. Myanmar is trying its best, but I'm sure ASEAN has a great role to make the path. And with your experience governing your country, you have this Guinea-Bissau experience, the experience in the United Nations, and now the disillusionment of the global governance model. Now you're a full member of ASEAN. I think now you have the responsibility to take part of this. What is your idea?
Well, there are wiser, more experienced people in ASEAN than me. If they have not found a solution, good one for Myanmar, I don't think I'm the one who will be able to do or Shannon have to be able to do it. And but let me explain about the heaven, that is the comparatives. I'm a Catholic and practicing Catholic. I don't know about to Muslims and Hindus and Buddhists, how your procedures, to go to heaven. I don't know. But Catholic procedures are much easier. All you have to do is pray more or less daily. If you have some sins, go to the priest, confess your sin, you pardon off. You die that evening, very likely you go to heaven. So that's so that is God. ASEAN is so much more complicated. That's why I say maybe because there's so many religions in ASEAN, they complicate the whole process to how to create heaven on earth. And but I have to say, joking aside, when you look at the record, where it is started, in the midst of the Vietnam War, war of insurgencies across Southeast Asia, Maoist inspiration insurgencies, different political systems, very different till today, incredibly rich, beautiful cultural diversity, and to reach the situation where ASEAN is respected worldwide. That is tremendous achievement. And the economic integration, trade, movement of people, and you look at each country and how far they have come from poverty of 30 years ago, 40 years ago to today. I see Jakarta when I was here in 74. ASEAN had just been created. And so that in itself balances out any negatives at night, and one negative is Myanmar. And that's where it is a big challenge for ASEAN. But again, it shows the difference. When the coup happened, swift reaction from ASEAN countries. Never before a coup happened in ASEAN, and the country is unable to participate in meetings. It was sanctioned. So that is very important. It shows how mindset and principles, values became, and that has to do also with the influence of civil society. Civil society in ASEAN, much more active today, organized, accepted, recognized than before. And way back 10 years ago, I talked with President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono. One thing I regret very much this past 30 years, 30 years, I think this year, 26, is 30 years since I got the Nobel Peace Prize. So 30 years. I regret that I never nominated B.J. Habibie for the Nobel Peace Prize. I just couldn't understand why the hell didn't I do. Probably no one contacted me to do it. And then I could not understand why Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono and Yusuf Kalla didn't get the Nobel Peace Prize for Aceh. Because to give only to Ahtisaari, and I don't know who else, God, you have to have a national ownership, national leadership, no matter the circumstances at that time, for Aceh to reach conflict in Aceh to reach a resolution. And that was possible only with Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono and Yusuf Kalla. And then I met with President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono. One time I was president already. I said, please, President, do something on Myanmar. And he did. In the first term in office, he focused on economics. Second term, he was more active. And he did go to Myanmar. And I don't know whether, I don't have a 100% evidence of that, but I talk. Back then, I was foreign minister, I received many people from Myanmar in my country. One army captain, he was somewhere in Thailand, he had fled, medical doctor, a HIV specialist. Somehow we managed to bring to Timor, and somehow we managed to get him accepted to go to Canada. And he was telling me about the mood and so on. I was beginning to be against sanctions, economic sanctions, because sanctions usually you apply only on weaker countries. You beat the dead horse. You don't do it to more robust countries, robust economies. So I was up. But of course, there are situations that you have to do it. And you cannot just abandon people. But I met with a French businessman from France and from Myanmar. He came to Timor as well. I was foreign minister. And he said this, in my factory, they all have my respect, my support for their human rights, for dignity. But if under sanctions imposed by the European Union, I have to close the factory, they leave. Yeah, and that's a dilemma. And so he taught me a lesson about we can talk and talk about this, but then there are, and then one young woman, she's American, but she spoke English more with a British accent. So she spent years in a very unassuming woman. I can say only her first name, because I don't know whether she would want, she's so shy, she don't want her name to be, so I just say that her book, and not the real name, her book, is a bestseller on Myanmar. She signed Emma Larkin. And very liberal, left liberal, something like that. She was also, she lived many years in Myanmar, back and forth. She was also said, who are the people who lose with all of this? He said, academics, students. The sanctions cut them off. So we end up prejudicing the people on whose behalf we talk about. It's a big dilemma for governments. Yeah. How are you going to deal with Iran? You know, God, so many people, intellectual, academic, in prison for years and years for whatever. You want to imprison someone? Yes. You just call him, her, working for the British spy agency, or work for the Americans or whatever, then go to prison. And a thing like that. So, ASEAN has to review that injustice or the people of Myanmar. To review, I'm not saying, I don't have any definitive opinion. I leave it to our Prime Minister, Shannon. He's the one who deals with ASEAN day-to-day issues. But if my opinion is to us, talk to the Myanmar military, Tatmadaw, at whatever level, send Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono there, because he was there. He's a 4-star general. Don't send a junior diplomat. My apologies to the junior diplomats. Because when I was in Guinea-Bissau, the military, they had to pay attention to me because they knew who I was. They didn't pay attention to the UN. They even were totally irreverent toward the Security Council. And then would say, yeah, we know you have a very good contact in Washington. You are the ones who can. And time to time, I would call Washington, and they would send a retired general to join me and talk to the military. Period. They pay more attention to the U.S. As a country than the UN itself. One of the generals, General Njai, almost illiterate, and he speaks Creole, and I didn't follow well Creole. But the way he talks, so funny sometimes, by the way, he dismissed the UN. But in the end, they listened. And then we did, the night before the results were coming, I had to go to see him like like midnight. And he was trying to convince me to change the result. And I told him, General, every vote is sacred. Anyway, I don't even know where the electoral commission is meeting. And I even don't know how you can interfere. Am I supposed to go to the computer and God, all I know is handle my own laptop. Not even laptop, iPad. I don't work any longer with laptop. And I told him, I said, listen, I know I cannot do that. You have a chance tomorrow. Be the first to announce that you accept the result. But I have to say, and they did. But to reach that point, my government, Shanana, was instrumental. The UN doesn't have money. And the UN doesn't get involved in certain activities totally outside the UN, very strictly. Like, for instance, I need to get some tractors to the general so they go off to their farms. Timor-Leste spent $400,000 in buying tractors for the generals. And I was very much helped by the king of Morocco. I don't know the king, I don't have personal relations, but I knew many Moroccan top officials. And I asked, can you help with providing uniforms? So the military asked me for 2,000 pieces of uniform, 2 pairs each. So that's a lot. I remember, and then I told my people, UN, go and check the sizes. I told you we don't send too small, too big. I remember one military had his foot size was 46. Because it caught me at that one, 46, this guy. Anyway, Morocco delivered within 2 months. A Moroccan aircraft came. I did all of this outside the box. The UN doesn't do this. And so when you are locked, blocked by rules, by bureaucracy, you don't give freedom to the special envoy. Above all, don't change the special envoys every 12 months. Get a good one, that the best you can have in ASEAN. Let him do the job casually, relax, for 2-3 years, whatever it takes. You change every 12 months. Well, not even for 12 months, because by the time he or she takes office and then start, 1 year gone. And so that's my only. And ASEAN in the region, please do everything to prevent escalation in South China Sea. We know what is happening with the Hormuz Strait and other situations. You are complacent, and then it will knock at your door. And how to do it? No, that I leave it to wiser people in ASEAN. Maybe they find a Japanese. Yes. Better a Japanese than the 4-star general. Don't send some retired captain. The Myanmar military will not listen. Send a 4-star. Maybe Susilo, he's still fit, he might be willing to go.
Yes, President, you're on record. You mentioned that. I think that's your next task. You have to convince former President Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono on this. Right? Getting to this ASEAN, I cannot miss by asking you the historical record. How did it happen last year, 2025? You officially was endorsed, but you waited for a long time, 14 years perhaps, or 15 years. Can you share us what happened in the last? Because I'm sure you are a good friend with Prime Minister Anwar, and you might have worked together with him or maybe other key friends to make this happen. Well, can you walk us through the final step? Because always the final step is the most steep and difficult.
No, what I can say is unanimity by the time they had reached Phnom Penh, November 22, for the acceptance in principle There was already unanimity. Then the question of how long. Then there was the roadmap in Labuan Bajo, and how long the roadmap would go. Would be 2 years, 3, 5 years, and so on. I had a meeting with our Prime Minister, Shannon, both of the two of us, we discussed. And I personally said, we must aim for 2025. 24 too soon, 25. But he, as the Prime Minister, is the one who would know whether we can deliver in 2 years. When I mentioned 2025, Malaysian chairmanship, he thought like that way he thinks. You know, you're talking with him, he's starting, he look at the ceiling. And he said, so in 2 years. I said, yeah, 2 years. We can do it. So we start focusing on that. There were some differences here and there, not because of objection, because as the state decided in Phnom Penh, then the roadmap, everyone, but many they look to Indonesia. And I understand Prabowo was very forceful, said Timor-Leste must join now. And the same with Anwar, Philippines, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, everybody. And so it was unanimity. I just remember one of the ASEAN leaders. I don't mention his name, but he said like this: you know, we, he's referring to himself, to many other ASEAN, we are too emotional. He said, the Singaporeans, they are not emotional. They deal with everything with numbers. You know? And I did mention this to Singaporeans, they laughed. And so this, don't try to make the Singaporeans emotional. No, present the facts, the numbers to them. You know. But some of us, you know, and the world has to be also with emotion. And but then you have someone, maybe let the Singaporeans be the one, and call our attention back to reality. Yeah, and stop this nonsense of emotions and let's look at the figures, the facts. But Singapore also one of the countries that I remember talking with Goh 20 years ago. I was foreign minister. He said, why you want to join ASEAN? We don't have any money. Stick with Australia, with Portugal, they are the ones who have money. And very practical. And so it is not that they were against Timor joining, but some worried about whether we are able to deliver, whether able to respond to. And the agenda is really mind-boggling. And our people love traveling. You know, Timorese officials, you tell, don't go here, go there. They are happy to go. But now themselves realize that it's tough. I think their enthusiasm for travel less. And I hope that 3-4 years from now, the Timor delegation, the seat of Timor delegation is not empty. If it will be empty, I will be very angry. Yeah. Because many, you go to the UN in New York, God, how many seats are empty? Of course, if the American president speaks, yes, everybody badmouth the American. But then when the US president speaks, the room is packed. The moment he leaves, total chaos. No one pay attention more to the following speaker. So when I speak at the UN, I always tell the protocol, please don't put me next to the US. And don't put me first speaker in the afternoon. Yeah, the room is empty. Don't put me first speaker, 2 or third speaker in the morning. I remember one time, Obama, I think, was speaking. The President of the General Assembly was a Swiss, And he did a great favor to his president, a lady, speak after President Obama. God, no one listened to her. But the moment Obama finished, total chaos in the UN. She was speaking, shouting, and no one was listening. And so I hope that a few years from now, I will look at photos, videos of Timor-Leste, and it is not empty. Because the meetings are overwhelming, but very good exercise. I think it's great intellectual stimulation for our people, for our youth. And when I go through all the papers, last night, our ambassador to ASEAN, and she sent me a whole, I said, God, how did she manage to write all of this in the evening? I was surprised. I am impressed. I wouldn't have the patience to do it. But I went through it. So that's the training, the benefit that we get from Singapore, Indonesia. Indonesia among the very first countries but Malaysia, I have to say, the first ASEAN prime minister, leader, to visit us soon after independence was Malaysia, Mahathir. The first country to give us military truck vehicles. Because you can imagine, during the struggle, we didn't have military truck vehicles. We had all weapons. It was Malaysia that gave us the first embassy for free. And I think residence also for free of our embassy. Plus some cash for day-to-day expenses and a vehicle, one or two cars. So Malaysia, day one, going back to... But Singapore gave us, of course, altogether, since independence, 800 or more Timorese officials did training in Singapore. And in many other countries throughout the Philippines, a lot of Timorese went to study in the Philippines. Thailand, we had also hundreds of Timorese went to study there. So all ASEAN countries have been treating us as brothers or sisters. And Australia, Australia has had incredible loyalty, support. And we are reaching agreement with Australia and the oil and gas companies to explore the Greater Sunrise gas field, one of the biggest in all of the region. Hopefully, I say just hopefully, we will sign the agreement by July for the development of the pipeline, with the pipeline coming to Timor. And plus, we have found 2-3 other fields onshore. And the investors, they say within 2 to 3 years, we can have production, enter into production. And this, I say this, and we are one country in the world that we have very little debt. And before, some years ago, some in ASEAN worried, God, Timor is so poor. How are you going to survive? Well, we have a sovereign fund that consider the best managed in Asia, one of the best in the world, a third best in the world. We invest in equity market that in the last 10 years brought us 8% a year. We get more return now from our investment than from oil and gas production. In terms of debt, we have only about 14% debt, which we could pay right away if we wanted to. But the interest that we pay is less than the interest we earn from our petroleum sovereign fund investment. Our economy growing almost 5% this year. By the end of this year, probably 5%. Of course, starting from very low level. No? So the country is on peak and peak. And we're able to do that with a lot of support. Australia has been a magnificent neighbor of Timor. During COVID, I don't think we would have survived COVID as well as I did without our leadership, but without Australian support. When During COVID, Australia had massive cases in Melbourne, Sydney, and I was worried. I was not in government, but I was helping the government with they are going to cancel the support because they need it. No, they didn't. And they sent experts, they gave money, and vaccine, shared vaccines with us, and so on. And Indonesia couldn't do much and anything because of its own situation, and very bad also. And I have to say, I personally, when I look at the figures in Indonesia, God, you cannot but have a feeling of sadness and compassion and what. We had very few cases. Mortality, real mortality, directly implicated with COVID was only maybe 2 people. If you count altogether, maybe 10, but with indirect people with serious diabetes, cancer, and so on. But directly from COVID, at least one person, one woman, maybe another one. So why? Because Timorese more than 60% below age 30, 50% below 20. Timorese never stay inside the house. The houses are small. Family is big, but you don't have 10, 20 people in a room. They're all under a mango tree, and no gossiping, bad mouthing neighbors, or play snooker, or whatever, and they're always out. Plus, I was told a very high level of smoking. Once on television, I said, we Timorese, we can be proud. We beat the Indians, the Chinese, the Americans. We beat them in the number of cigarette smoking, higher than any of these countries. Motorbike accidents, we also beat the Chinese, we beat Indonesia, we beat every higher incident of motorbike accident. So when COVID happened, and one boy, 20 years old, had a motorbike accident, crashed his brain. Then they decided to do COVID. Why bother doing a COVID test on a dead person? They did, and they said he was positive. So he was added to the list of victims. I protested. No, this is misleading. So next year, Timor accident, number of motorbike accidents will be less because they died of COVID, not a motorbike accident. So they start reviewing the way it is counted. Died with COVID or from COVID. So overall, we have been lucky. The war in Iran or Hormuz, not much affecting us because the government intervened right away to purchase more oil from Taiwan. We procured. Then Taiwan is the one that was able to. And then we found out Australia also buying oil from Taiwan. I was surprised. I thought Australia was totally self-sufficient. And the government intervened to soften the blow. And so far, people are not complaining too much, except the opposition. But the common people so far, no. But if the situation prolongs, it's more difficult to sustain. So some of the conditions, economically, we are not overly dependent. We no longer, in the past, we had budget support. We don't have any budgetary support from outside. It's all 100% funded by our own resources. Low debt, no sovereign risks, no Timorese organized crime. That I say, we don't have organized crime because generally we Timorese are very disorganized. Because to have a local Timorese organized crime, oh God, the police will get them the next day. Yeah. One friend of mine, from a young person from Hong Kong, he used to be a great supporter of Timor in Sydney. Then he came, he bought a computer, everything to set up his little office a few years ago. And 2 days later, he lost. People robbed him. I said, did you complain to the police? He said, I did. I said, don't worry. In 2 days, they will return you 2 days later, the police found. Because the same people. And our community police is all over the city. And our people are so naive. They steal something, they talk about it in a neighborhood. Oh, I got this, I got So organized crime in Indonesia, in wherever, they don't trust us. The Timorese talk too much. Yeah.
That's a new way to prevent any an organized crime to enter the country. I know this is too tempting to stop, but let me stop here so that I can open up. One more question to end with. We always have a question like, yes, reaching to peace and reconciliation is one thing, but to govern from there on is another. Especially the question is, you have won the peace, but has the peace won for the people? Whether the peace delivers. It could be in welfare, it could be with prosperity, it could be. I'm sure you have created a society with no crime, so safety is very much well established. But I'm sure with the existing, international situation and the nature of your government and your society's transformation, I'm sure there will be new challenges ahead. We understand your term of president is ending next year. So I'm sure you are looking into another new generation of leaders of Timor-Leste. If you are to tell what character or what standard of leadership are you expecting for your next leadership of Timor-Leste?
Well, in 2002, we had only one PhD. Now we have over 200. And most of the PhD, I would say 90%, earn abroad. Because until a few years ago, our universities wouldn't, have a PhD program, rightly so. We had, I don't know how many master's degrees back then, 20 years ago, but now we have almost close to 2,000. 2002, we had 20 medical doctors. Now 1,400 medical doctors, although very few specialists, very few eye specialists, very few dentists, heart surgeons, things like that. And it has improved. Life expectancy increased by more than 10 years since independence. But still a lot of poverty, extreme poverty, still a lot of malnutrition. And it's not, you don't have simple answers to that. Because recently I traveled in the Vikeke area, Watu Karawau, Watu Lari, through very bad roads. I was so impressed, surprised with so much cattle there. Belong to families. A lot of buffaloes, cows, goats, all over. And so that is not poverty. That is wealth. People have 20, 30, 50 cattle. And then I asked, why don't you sell this? Oh, too expensive, the transportation. To sell to the market in Delhi, which is the main market, they provide money, $500 in the truck for carry a buffalo. Well, the buffalo is like $500, $600, whatever. So it's your access to a market. But also has to do with habits. Yeah, people save the buffaloes, save the goats for a wedding. Not so much wedding, yes, if you have to marry, if you're Timorese, the reason I'm not married till now is because I don't have enough buffaloes, enough money for the dowry. And particularly if you go to the women in Los Palos, oh God, they think they are the queen, so even more expensive. So I decide to save money but wedding, not so much. It is the funerals. A funeral can go on and on and on. They slaughter all the buffaloes. And then you have no money for the rest of the year. So that's one culture. It's not just that, no, people have a wealth in terms of properties they have. How to change that? Oh, God. I remember speaking a few years ago to a group of elderly in the Maubisi area. I start going for a blunt then. I said, some of the cultures we must give away with. The world evolved. this culture of yours, slaughter buffaloes, we celebrate more death than a child is born. These old people have all heard before. They heard from the Portuguese the same lecture. They heard from the Indonesian the same lecture. They sit there very politely. They still do the same. So they still slaughter the buffaloes for some funeral, some wedding, not so much, except the dowry. So these are some of the reasons, but also failed policies in terms of, we talk about agriculture all the time. But agriculture is not a great business. If you have a nightclub, you can make a lot of money, in a situation with people with money. But agriculture, well, very difficult. So that's why in Europe, in the United States, a lot of subsidies. In France, any president in France that talk about eliminating agricultural subsidy, they have 10,000 tractors surrounding Paris. So they subsidize. In Timor, no, we don't. Now a national development bank is being created precisely to support farmers. That's one problem. I said no political violence of any sort, but we still have the plenty of domestic violence. It's unacceptably high. That is something that we have to do as a society. There is no plausible explanation for that. We still have a high level of child stunting and malnutrition. I don't really buy too much the World Bank or UN surveys because I'm too familiar with it. You go to a village, you ask, how much cattle you have? He or she will tell, oh, I have one, when in fact he has 20. Because if you say you have buffalo, cows, goats, they know then the government is not going to help us. So they're always undercounting what they have. They say, oh no, we are poor. And then if you know how to answer the question, they start, the lies start coming. But still, even if you discount, and depends on the people they send to the volunteers. You send some young Timorese to talk to the elderly in the country. Well, they don't know how to get information out of them. So these are the flaws of the so-called surveys. But still, nevertheless, it's high. So that's a failure. But the government increasing budget to rural roads. Last year, this year, next year, a lot of movement in terms of rural roads. Electricity now has reached 100% of the country. In 2002, at independence, only Delhi and a bit. But we have very expensive electricity. We have to subsidize it. We use diesel. We could have used heavy fuel, which would be cheaper, but unacceptable. And now we are going to have a French and a Japanese company, a first major solar project, more than $100 million, private, French and Japanese, that would sell electricity to our electricity company, the state company. And so electricity, diesel, 24 cents a kilowatt. Solar will be less than 10 cents. Our electricity is a killer of investors. Far too expensive. But we are trying to move into gas and into renewable.
Okay, thank you very much, President. That's a great challenge you address clearly, which will be an invitation to everyone here to Timor-Leste to think of their ways to work together with. I would like to open the floor as I pledged in the beginning. So I would like to invite any from the audience to the question to our President Ramos-Horta. Please raise your hands. For those who have questions, our staff will come to you with the microphone. Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, first of all, this is not a question, but this is, I would like to take this opportunity to thank His Excellency, Mr. President, for being here and since there is no question actually, for being with
Please
us.
keep it as a question.
I just want to thank Mr. President. I don't have to have a question actually. Just want to thank Mr. President for being with us today and to give us this history and highlight of great information that have made us good listeners and caught our ears on those very valuable information that's been given. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay, thank you very much. Yes, please go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Sharon Lennon. I'm the Ambassador of Ireland. It's a real pleasure to listen to you today, Mr. President. Thank you for sharing your insights with us all. Just have a question in relation to what you referenced on reconciliation and the importance in a post-peace process environment of continuing to invest in that reconciliation. That's something I very much recognise from the Irish story. Often the further you get away from the generation who lived the challenge of creating peace, the harder it is to convince new generations of that importance of reinvesting. Those who worked hard for peace create a better environment for the generations that come afterwards, but often that can lead to a memory loss of the reasons why peace, reconciliation and truth are still very important. What's your advice to us all who try to keep peace as a lived reality every day and how to make that reconciliation real for the generations who have more than those who went before? Thank you.
I would say democracy in Timor-Leste is consolidated. Our people are incredibly well informed, opinionated in the good way. During election time, I think like in Indonesia, because I saw one Indonesian person who used to work for me, he's from somewhere in Indonesia. He had, every time he came up, he was wearing a new T-shirt. And some T-shirt, he had Golkar there, another PDI. So, and it reminds me of Timor. We copy a lot from Indonesia. So, election time, when the people are happiest, because the politicians pay attention. We have a distribution of rice, some bicycle, and all of that. But they still vote what they want. I remember several politicians. One of them, he talked to me very upset. I don't mention his name. He later became an ambassador. And he came to me very upset because he said, he's from a town somewhere, I don't mention the name. And he said, they asked me for money, I gave them money. Then they asked for a buffalo again, and then no one voted for me. And then another, one is much more educated, studied in Europe, had his part. He was so upset. He said, I will never again get involved in Timor democracy. They asked me money again, then his party lost, not even a single seat. The other day, I saw him announce a new party. I said, oh God, I forgot already. You know, that. So people do that, and I don't care. I say, yeah, and take the money, take the bicycle, demand a motorbike, but then vote the way you want. And it is not the government cheating or not the leader cheating. It's the common people cheating. And that's what makes me laugh and laugh, because I give you, even myself, I was victim of some cheating. There was the party headquarters of my opponent. And the election time, you have to vote where you were registered. So if you're in Dili, you have to buy transportation, pay transportation, $20 to go all the way to Swai. So they go to one party, my opponent, they got $20 out of them. Then they come to me, they get $20, to go. And then instead of going to Ushuaia, they get off in just a few kilometers away, all organized with a truck. So they collect hundreds of dollars and they actually then go to. But this, I don't think that, but in terms of respect for the cleanness of the voting, of the supervision, monitoring, counting, then justice sector, and no one complain about the result. It is accepted. All this year, 25 years next year, we never fail to hold democratic election. It's consolidated. Our defense force, our police, year by year, much and much better in terms of respecting human rights, freedom of people. Because anything goes wrong, some violence happen, the media don't stop to ask why the police did what they did. Why they have, no, they just immediately publish. And then when I try to find out what really happened, no, that guy was really provoking them. Because when they bashed up one guy in Ushuaia, then I asked the police, and they explained what happened. He went through the roadblock. The roadblock was for something, nothing political or whatever. Then he teased them with his motorbike. Well, when they caught him, they bashed him up. And then whole film. So that's one thing. No political violence of any sort, and I don't think there is anything like that will happen in Timor. New generation want space. Well, I keep telling them, excuse me, country's been 25 years. People of my generation, 75, only half a dozen of us. Almost the entire cabinet, people new generation. The 100% members of the parliament, 100% new generation. But they talk as if, well, they should give us the space. Yeah, you have the democratic space. Campaign. I said, yeah. I personally, José, I prefer the North Korean model. The North Korean model is the best. You don't, election result, 97% vote for Kim Jong-un. They were surprised the 3% didn't vote. They do a recounting, the 3% disappeared, so it became 100%. You know well in advance who is going to be the president. You don't waste money on, when I say that to them, I say, no, that we don't want. Yeah, okay, so, because if it's North Korean model, then I can hand over power to, I'm the president, I hand over to my cousin or my nephew or my son. And my point is, all these elections, the new candidate, because we have like 7, 8 presidential candidates, they don't even get 1,000 votes. Maybe 10,000 maximum, but you need 170,000 or whatever. And that is the challenge. And the challenge is what? Is also cultural. I don't want to be the oldest president of the youngest country in the world. It's a bit embarrassing. God, can you imagine if next year I run again and then they put me next to President Trump, next to whoever as the oldest president in the world? I said, oh God, that's not a great compliment. And so I don't know whether I will run. That Mr. Shanano will decide. But even if he said run again, I will think twice. And that is a very important issue. We are chairing ASEAN in 2029. The country has to remain stable with experienced leadership. And we have a presidential election 2027, parliamentary election 2028. So that's reconciliation is 100%. That's Timorese. You just look at the way we relate with Indonesia. Indonesia relate with us. We have tens of thousands Timorese in Indonesian universities. Gajah Mada alone graduated 3,000 Timorese. Altogether in Indonesia, 10,000 students. Some may be unaccredited universities, but majority are in top good universities. At least 10,000 Indonesians living in Timor-Leste. Very good relationship, very good with the border area people. So that regard, we will continue to do more to recognize our victims, the widows, those disappear. But that is our responsibility. And so,
Yes, thank you very much. May I point to Kun Kavi?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President. I'm from Thailand. You have accomplished so much. Can you tell me, do you still have incomplete projects in your mind? I repeat, you have accomplished so much over these 3 decades of struggling. Do you still have incomplete projects in your mind? Thank you.
thank you. No, yes, the incomplete is 25 years later, we still have too much child poverty, malnutrition, and domestic violence. I'll be happiest only when I know that there is no more child malnutrition, no abuse of children, no domestic violence. Because I tell people, yes, we don't have a political violence. We are not at war. But ask a woman at home who is victim of violence if this is peace. Ask children who are victims of violence at home. Is this peace? No. Peace is not only the absence of war, of ethnic fighting. No, domestic violence is violence. And so that's one, and that I keep campaigning, but not only me, Prime Minister Shanan, all the leaders in this regard, strong consensus against domestic violence, against extreme poverty. When I went to China in 2024, state visit, and Vietnam, to the 2 leaders, I said the same. Please, I told Xi Jinping, you eliminated extreme poverty in China. You are 1.4 billion people. Please help us eliminate extreme poverty in Timor-Leste. We are only 1.4 million. And the Chinese are very efficient. You ask them something. Before I went to China, I talked at length with ambassador. Before I went, they had already sent their engineers, water engineers to Timor to study about irrigation, about water availability. By the time I met with Xi Jinping, he had already engineering studies on his desk. Vietnam, immediately after China, next flight was to Vietnam. I said the same to the Vietnamese. That's my obsession. I want to see Timor eliminating extreme poverty, increase agriculture, food output. During the struggle, I had a great experience with Thailand. In 1994, I went to Myanmar illegally through the border. Not to do anything illegal, well, maybe it was illegal. I was teaching democracy, human rights in Manipur. I came back to Myanmar, to Thailand from Myanmar. I had been blacklisted, persona non grata, by the Thai government. That's when I learned something from the Thais, how you manage a tricky situation. And the Thais leaked to the media that I was persona non grata. I called the Portuguese ambassador. The moment I came in, I saw in the nation that I was persona non grata. The ambassador, you saw what, can I stay in your home? The Portuguese ambassador, yes. So he sent a car to pick me up. Several days there, no one actually from Thai immigration looking for me. And the negotiation went on for the conference on Timor and Myanmar. At the time they called Burma. Back and forth, they counsel, they forbid Chulalongkorn of those. Finally, the Thai government agreed with, I organized, okay, you do the conference someplace far away from Bangkok, near the airport. After the conference, Mr. Ramos-Horta has to leave. When I arrived at the conference, well, there are only like 30 people. After the days of cat and mouse, people are split. But in reality, the Thais never looked for me. They very politely took me to the airport. And when I got to the airport, the immigration people all wanted to do pictures with me. We don't know what's happening, but you seem to be a famous person. Can we have pictures? And so the Thais, they leaked to the press that I was considered persona non grata. So Indonesia was happy with that. But in reality, they were not looking for me. They knew I was at the Portuguese embassy. So that was my little experience with learning with Thai. When you face a difficult problem, what you do. One time with Hassan Uriudo, he was foreign minister. The UN wanted to send some human rights mission to Indonesia and Timor. We said right away, Indonesia said no, and then I spoke with Hassan. Well, Indonesia was a bit embarrassed. Oh God, what they're going to do? I joked with Hassan. Please, Hassan, why don't you do the typical Javanese way? Yes and no. And but in the end, the UN came. They just wanted to some follow-up report. So I learned with the Thais, I learned with Indonesia, except with Dino. God, he was so aggressive.
Wonderful. Yes, the lady.
Chloe, here, there.
Hello, my name is Chloe Jalal. I work for the Jakarta Post, and I wanted to ask.
You can say the name of your father right in front of you.
This is my father, Dino Jalal. I wanted to ask a question that's more related to ongoing history. So I recently attended a Track 1.5 forum on ASEAN in Cebu, where Ambassador Nelson Santos, one of your senior advisors, he spoke about Timor-Leste's approach to leadership and development, which uniquely puts the people first. He said that when solving development goals, communities are always part of every solution, that Timor-Leste's politicians don't just consult each other, but they actually go down to the villages to speak to the people, because research data often doesn't reflect the reality of things. And this is a very people-focused method to leadership and to development and problem solving that we don't often see in other ASEAN countries, including Indonesia. So could you describe more of this method of leadership that puts locals first, and how can other ASEAN countries learn from it? Do you believe that larger countries like Indonesia could apply these principles to their own leadership?
Well, again, I would say we have to learn with Singapore. We have to learn with, let's say, the Indonesian province of NTT. When I first went to NTT, to Labuan Bajo, 2012, very poor, nothing there really. There was a new hotel there. And me and my son, we went to a restaurant up on the hills. And the whole time I kept smiling because, God, people's behavior is just like East Timorese. Slow. You walk to the restaurant, they all sitting, they don't even bother coming to talk to you. So I warned let's all ask just for the same dish, chicken. The way I see this is going to take forever for them. So yeah, it took them a while. And then the poor chicken came only 1 hour late. And then I joke, I said, you know what, these people here, they probably got capacity building in Dili. And I went again 2 years ago. God, I couldn't believe the changes. Totally unrecognizable. Well, because of the leadership of Victor Lascota, with the support of the president in Jakarta, completely transformed. So it's we don't have it to. We learn from. We just need to go. We don't need to go too far. You learn from NTT. learn from Singapore, learn from all the other ASEAN countries, incredible success. Now things have changed dramatically in the last 2 years. Our parliament is like every parliament in the world. There are some people very good, very smart. They research the issues, they investigate, they don't talk nonsense. But many others, we have a live coverage constantly of the sometimes I feel like telling the media, God, don't bother, it's totally waste of time giving airtime to some of these politicians. But well, that's democracy. So yes, many they do go to the villages, and they do report back to the parliament. Both the opposition, and when they go, usually they go together, or the government side, and depends on the specific issues. Sometimes just the opposition. The government is very active, but like I tell you, current opinion poll in Timor that is very credible gives Mr. Shanana 83% approval. The government 70-something% approval. No government in the world you get 70% approval, except maybe 40% is already very high. And that's the result of what people are seeing, not only Dili, the capital, but in the village area. The data also from World Bank, UNDP, positive about the changes, but they also mentioned the challenges. But then, as I say, there are some are good, some are bad, some government ministers are good, some are very slow. It is nothing unusual about it. Many people are frustrated with the oath is too slow. But our laws are very strict in terms of transparency, accountability. Sometimes things are slow because the minister is afraid to sign. The Secretary of State is afraid to sign. The Director General is afraid to sign. So it goes through back and forth to the different legal thing, go to the... I know our country is small, is new. And we have it, and how you call it, a tribunal. It's called Tribunal de Contas, Tribunal of Accounting. So major projects approved by the Council of Ministers is not enough. You have to send to the Tribunal de Contas. Well, how long does it take? And they are really so competent, they can look at this. So we are in the beginning of independence, I told donors, please don't impose on Timor rules, regulations, laws that belong to Europe. We need fast decision, streamlined decision. I said in the meeting, a post-war country like Timor has to be managed economically like in a post-war situation. Decision has to be quick. No, we're all very happy with all the advice from World Bank, from the Norwegians, and then we have the legislation that we don't even understand. Yeah. So we have so many laws. Indonesian friends tell us the Timorese like very much MOUs. But with Indonesia, apparently we have more than 100 MOUs. Indonesian gets very frustrated because we get an MOU and say, oh, what a great success. And nothing else happened. And I got a lesson from the Vietnamese Prime Minister. And when I visit, his talking points, he said something like this. He said, because the Vietnamese are very, no niceties when he said, when we sign agreements, we implement them. Well, why he has to tell me that? So I told our vice prime minister, because I'm not responsible for that. Yeah. Oh, magbe correspond with it. You will reply to this one. So that will do it.
Good. That's the diplomacy that that the president has shared. May I collect some questions? He's open for any questions because he was very generous that he came for this, so he would not like to miss any questions that have been willing to be asked for. Yes, please.
Hi, my name is Danielle from the US. It's been an honor and privilege to hear you speak today. And as a almost 50-year dialogue partner of ASEAN, we're so happy to welcome you into the ASEAN family last year. You may have already answered my question. You alluded to it that Timor-Leste will chair the ASEAN in 2029. But, we've heard from different sources mixed answers on this. So I just wanted to hear from you. And then also, if it is still in question, how can all of us make that a reality? What kind of things are you looking for concretely from all of the ASEAN dialogue partners, sectoral partners, and beyond?
Oh, well, we are working towards the ASEAN chair, and frantic work in Timor right now. We usually work better under pressure. If you talk about the ASEAN chair in 2030, no one is going to. So that's why with Mr. Shanana, we said we aim for 2 years. And when Papa Francisco came to Timor, it was only in April that year, 2024, that the government, the council ministers made a decision to build infrastructures, everything. We don't even have a hotel. We don't have a single public toilet in Dili. How about water for children? Because the church had expect 700,000 people in Dili. How are you going toilet facilities, water for people so that they don't dehydrate and collapse? Food, they come from all over the country. How is that going to happen? Security, how to prevent stampeding. All of that. Well, we had 700,000 people, not a single incident. Everybody got enough water, everybody got enough toilets. Australia actually provide us with portable toilets. Indonesia, and I think with our people, I think together with Australia, very sophisticated surveillance all over the city. From the command center, they knew exactly what was going on. I was only briefed after. Very sophisticated, to observe. Zero detection of anything suspicious. No stampeding. Infrastructures very quickly built for the mass. So, and I was very skeptical the whole time about but I have to say, Shannon was the hands-on job. 4 a.m, he's already in the streets, and with those in charge. Amazing delivery. The Pope was very touched with the reaction of the people. When he was leaving, I was with him till he got to the gate of the plane, and he said, "Cuiden bien de este pueblo maravilloso. Look well after these wonderful people." That was his message. And so if we can handle the Pope's visit, 700,000 people, 300 journalists, I think we can handle the ASEAN chair. And that will also, in any case, we have said a bit, but it will boost the economy. It will be some significant boosting, because that's already happening. It put in pressure on us, convention center, authorization from hotels, land for all the investors. So And I have to say, Ambassador UAE, maybe that the hotel and that the hospital will not be ready by then, but UAE is helping us with a modern top 5-star hospital that will have every specialization possible. UAE helping us with a dormitory, a female student residential place. And that is 100% very humanitarian, because our female students who come from the mountains, from the villages, going to university, live in very poor conditions in so-called cost. And I personally made appeal to Sheikh Mohammed 2 years ago. And this is happening now. So it will add to the education system, because it's for university students, and in my view, only for those studying science and technology. I have a scholarship program the government has, that I give scholarship only to those studying science and technology, because we have too many social science. And no offense to anyone social science here in this room, but when you are not smart enough, you go to the easiest course. The easiest is international relations. What's so secret about international relations? You go to, I don't know, some go to theology. And I said, listen, theology, let the church, they find the road to heaven. You don't have to waste time with it. That's theology. But, when those who are not good with math, physics, and business, we have so many students, international relations, and anything to do with the humanities. I said, no, I'm not supporting giving scholarship to any humanities stuff. Hassan is international relations, so I apologize for. Oh, law, you did law. Okay, that law, yes, fine. Marty, what do you do? I gave a talk in Paris 2 years ago. God, I was speaking in Sciences Po. I forgot that I was in a famous international relation, and I was criticized the international relation. The dean of the school, she was not very happy with my comment about it.
I'm afraid, His Excellency, we are also an economic research institute, and we have
sorry.
economics. And I myself is a
But,
historian.
economics is important. Yeah, of course. Yeah, as many degrees on economics. Yeah.
Yes, the president's still open for taking questions. Yes, further back. Okay.
Hello, good afternoon, everybody. Sorry to be keeping everybody from lunch. My name is Mahira. I'm a policy fellow at ERIA. It's an honor to have you here, Mr. President. I have 2 questions. One is actually, you've been a steward for Timor-Leste and instrumental in its nation building for a long time. I would like to hear what you see as your biggest fear for Timor-Leste. And my second question is, we know that there is no democracy that is alike. And what is, in your view, what is your character, what do you think is the defining characteristic that is unique to Timor-Leste's democracy? Thank you.
Yeah. When we are rated in democracy, I think we are rated number 1 among ASEAN countries. And when I share that once in my page, one cynical character, I don't know where he's from, I think Malaysian, or he said, José, a friend of mine, he said, I don't know where he was at the time based, and he said something like, José, with the kind of neighbors you have, it's not difficult to be number 1. And I don't know what he was referring to, but so we are rated number 1 democracy in Southeast Asia, and maybe high also in Asia in general. And the freedom of press in 2023, we were rated number 10 in the world, even higher than Australia, New Zealand, UK, France, Germany, higher than the United States. The United States is 40-something, France, UK like 26, 27. And at that time I was visiting UK, had a meet with David Cameron. And I told him, you people always supported us. All these years, we never supported you. So I'm going to send a media team from Timor-Leste to see how you can improve your media ranking. And he said, yes, we welcome that. But I was surprised. I read Guardian all the time, Le Monde, and all this. I don't see anything wrong with all these newspapers. Very dynamic, very critical. But right now we are at the number 30 and why we went down because too much talk in the parliament about criminalizing defamation. The defamation become crime. And not that it has been acted already, I don't think so. Not since independence, not a single journalist has been in jail, has been newspaper closed down or radio or whatever. We have many newspapers, many television, radios, a lot. This might not mean much because Indonesia has from my counting some time ago, you have over 100 TV channels, 30,000 radios, and the incredible flow of information, particularly social media. So literally zero. And so when some politicians said, we must control the social media. I said, really? We cannot even control transit in Delhi, and you want to control the social media. How are you going to do that? Let's stop it and wasting time with this. These things happen and will continue to happen. And so we have zero censorship of any sort. Politicians, journalists, sometimes. And I tell my colleague leaders, when some upset, I say, listen, sure, I'm going to call tomorrow I'm going to call the editor of the newspaper. He is going to hear me. I said, listen, don't do it. You do, the next day, headline, so minute, so call and threaten me. And he'll be lying. The politician only complaining, But the journalist will say, the minister threatened me. Will be headline. And how then you have to waste your time explain, no, I was not ready. So, and then it feeds on and on there. So far, great activities of around the social media. Facebook, I think, is 80% of the country. People have 2, 3 phones. 20 years ago, 15 years ago, getting a phone was a luxury. And now kids, even children, have a mobile phone. For good and for bad. But in life, you're not influenced only by the bad things, by the good things. So far, no complaints from us about our media, whether electronic or social or whatever.
Thank you very much. Just to follow up, this freedom of media with together with the social media, with the AI, this is now becoming a global attention, and how that could be a promise for furthering democracy or demolishing democracy. That's the common questions that everybody is asking.
Yeah.
The condition has been totally changed, the way we consume or collect informations, not only the informations of the current or information of the past as well. Looking at your history in Timor-Leste, with this global trend kicking in, of course, into Timor-Leste society as well, what is the biggest technique or political decision you could think of to bring more promise rather than perils of excessive form of informational world?
If we look through history, many wars, genocide happen because of media. And media say in general, and not necessarily journalists who do it. The genocide in Rwanda, for instance, it happened when people went on radio, the one side, and instigate ethnic hatred. Radio was very responsible for that. In the Balkans, radio, television were responsible for that. But radio and television succeed in doing these things when politicians use that. But you don't ban media. You don't ban because these things happen. You ban or criminalize individuals who use television or radio or whatever as an instrument of propaganda that incite violence. So that's in history, throughout history. In Myanmar, during the situation with the Rohingya, 2017 situation, Facebook was very much used. 800 subscriptions of Facebook accounts, 800 accounts involved in the spreading of anti-Rohingya, anti-Muslim. Yeah. So these things can happen. And in Europe, what happened? The crisis in Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, huge flow of refugees to Europe. And that it is not only the right wing that manipulate, exacerbate. You have also to understand, yes, when suddenly you have influx of people, well, there is bound to be anxiety, fear. We are going to be overwhelmed. And I have to say, all these, fears a few years ago, I was once few years ago in Barcelona. I was sitting there before I was re-elected president in a bench with some people, and I saw people walking back and forth. Muslims with their attire, whatever, and Africans, totally peaceful, totally relaxed. And I say, oh God, if this is happening elsewhere in Spain, I'm very happy. And generally, this is it. I was in Berlin with a friend. He had to go somewhere. He was driving me. He said, drop me in that store, in one of the best stores you have. I went and I sat there inside. I saw many different people coming in, including Muslim women dressed up completely conservatively, their traditional way. And they also join in, like you go to the first floor and then is a tube. And you slide down to, they also did that. They were happy. And I said, if this is what happened elsewhere in Germany, it is challenging the nightmare scenarios that everybody was saying. Because there are a lot of good people who today, now we have like a right-wing surge or anti-immigration surge. All of these are passing phenomena. The Europeans, they survived the Brigade Rota. They survived Action Directe in France. They survived Bandermeinhof in Germany of the 70s or 60s. They went through, and democracy survived. Look at in France itself. Well, the extreme right lost the election in the municipality or parliamentary election. So I'm not so pessimistic like democracy in regression. Yeah, some people lost the election because the extreme right is a bit like the extreme left. Both promise miracles, promise easy solution. And both sides, after a few years in office, they lose. Well, look, just I don't want to mention countries but look at what's happening in Europe. Yeah, alternation back and forth, but no one really. Europeans cannot afford to end immigration for moral reasons, but also economic reasons. You need immigration. And then you have a phenomenon in Asia, you also, Singapore needs immigration, South Korea needs, Japan needs, China needs, and who have peoples of the world, workers of the world, maids of the world, and scientists of the world. Because in the past, you hear only about workers, you hear about maids. But now you hear about scientists from Asia. Sometimes I joke, the Americans and the Chinese waste their time fighting who is in charge of the world. Well, the Indians are already in charge. They occupy all the top positions in the US, from Google to this and that, in the Prime Minister in the UK, and all of that. And the Filipinos, they position people everywhere. The Philippines are the more dangerous one. You find Filipinos everywhere. And, so it is a real globalization is happening. And they're totally normal.
Yeah. Thank you so much. I think because of that situation, I think a story like yours, who showcases the goodwill and the partnership with all the leaders on different countries, like especially with Indonesia and other countries, I think that narrative, supports the goodwill and the narrative champions over all the vicious narratives. So I think that's exactly why we wanted here to speak about your story. So thank you so much. I think we will be coming to the end of our program. I would really like to thank His Excellency, the President Ramos-Horta, for sharing this richness of your episodes and experience and your thoughts with us today. I'm sure you had been as entertained as I am. As you know, he has been a fluent storyteller and a powerful one. And I would like to conclude here today with the leadership lecture, and then for us to be celebrated with his leadership and his lessons. So once again, please join me in thanking the President Ramos-Horta.
Ladies and gentlemen, we shall now proceed with the Wall of Fame and acrylic signing ceremony by His Excellency José Ramos-Horta. Alongside of his sign, it will be, we already have 3 leaders who have priorly signed this Wall of Fame, which is His Excellency Hun Sen, His Excellency Susilo Bambang Yudhoyono, and His Excellency Abhisit Vejajiwa. So, His Excellency, we will be really grateful if you would like to sign this Wall of Fame for us. Anywhere. Thank you, His Excellency. Thank you, His Excellency, for being here with us today. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's program. On behalf of ERIA, we extend our sincere appreciation to His Excellency José Ramos-Horta, all distinguished speakers, participants, and guests for joining us and contributing to today's meaningful exchange. We hope today's discussion will strengthen dialogue, mutual understanding, and regional cooperation across ASEAN and beyond. Thank you once again and wish you a pleasant afternoon.